Hi, this is James Gordon here with a book review. Today's book I'm reviewing today, Bloodworm by John Halkin. Look at that sick cover. That is just an awesome cover. This is from Arrow, and this edition is from 1997. This was a reread. I read this book years ago, and I didn't really remember much about it, so I decided for October Terror to read this book to get some killer animal stuff for this month. This was a decent read. Like, it has its moments that I like. I love the idea of like these giant man-eating worms that basically go on a rampage in London, causing like havoc, destruction, just eating anyone that gets in their path. And you, of course, got these beetles that are also just spreading throughout the London and stuff. But they're like, it has a great idea. However, the rest of the book, it just kind of loses its momentum, and I felt the author didn't know where to go with the story. Like, there's a part where I felt like after adding so many scenes of carnage and stuff, it's like he didn't know what to put in, and added some other scenes I didn't like. I also felt that his characters weren't really fleshed out that well. They're kind of flat, boring, and really unlikable characters. Like, there's no one you really care for in this story, and the ending had a really kind of like a really disappointing ending. I was expecting so much more from this book. Yeah, I'm kind of torn on this book. Like, there's a part of me that likes it, and then there's a part of me that doesn't like it. So I'm kind of in the middle with it. It was okay, but it could have been better. I read I read another book by this author. He did that whole series, the whole Star of S, and again, that was a decent read. I'll have to read that book too. It's been years since I read it, but I'll explain more on my review about this book, of the things I liked with it and the things I really didn't like with it. And this is kind of a toss-up if I would even recommend this book to others. Like, if you're curious about like these like 80s horror books about killer animals and bugs and stuff, they can be fun to read sometimes, but don't expect a lot from them, or like going with high expectations. But yeah, it would leave you more disappointed than amused with it. Alright, onto the book review. Plot: a homeless person returns to an abandoned school in London. They turned it into their home. Entering inside, the homeless person sits at a desk, taking out what food he has gathered, and joining him are several beetles. While sharing some of his food with them, the homeless man accidentally cuts himself, which causes more beetles to suddenly appear and begin swarming him. The following morning, a ex-soldier father, Guy Archer, goes searching for his 18-year-old daughter, who hasn't returned home yet. His search leads him to all places he knows his daughter likes to visit, to the rough area, which takes him to the abandoned school. Thinking she's inside, Guy enters and discovers the dead body, and within seconds the beetles swarm him as they attack him. Unable to get the beetles off of him, Guy barely escapes the attack and is nearly killed when the ceiling above him caves in on him. Investigating this strange case is Sergeant Evans, a tall and very tough detective on the force. While others are skeptical about Guy's reports, Evans is sure he's onto something. Sergeant Evans, along with a few others, visit the school to see if they can find any of these beetles. They find them, however, there are too many, and nearly lose a member of their team after falling through the floor and getting stuck. Unable to get one of the beetles alive, it's ordered to have the abandoned school burned to ensure the beetles can't harm anyone else. After making a full recovery, Guy is trying to get back with his normal life, however is haunted by the events that happened at the school with the beetles, along with having nightmares of large worm-like snake creatures eating the remains of dead bodies. Guy contacts one of the team members who investigated the beetles, Mrs. Armstrong, a member of the Public Health Department, who's been studying these bugs. Mrs. Armstrong reveals that there have been more reports of these beetles being seen in other areas of London, along with reports of large worms. Guy knows he isn't the only one who's seen these creatures and fears things are only going to get worse. When a team is sent on patrol looking through old buildings, they discover an infestation of beetles. They send out a report, but the team is killed by the beetles, and later the building collapses. Guy joins Mrs. Armstrong and Sergeant Evans as the team investigates the remains, finding signs of both beetles and these large worms. When Guy finds a live one of the team members tries to pull it out of a piece of wood that's hiding in, only to nearly have his fingers bitten off. Guy stomps his army boot under it, causing a splatter of blood all over the ground in his boot. With the infestation reports of more beetles showing up in buildings along with large worms, Mrs. Armstrong is shocked at the speed these bugs are moving. While the government is trying to exterminate these bugs, however, it might be already too late as the swarm of beetles spreads throughout England and the worms become unstoppable force, which leads to the mass destruction of London. The city is about to turn into a war zone with Guy ready to face his fears once and for all. Bloodworm was a decent read. While it had its moments of carnage, a swarm of flesh-eating beetles and giant man-eating worms causing massive destruction in London while devouring anyone in their path. However, the finale was a bit of a letdown, and the bleak ending didn't really make it any better. Characters were hit and miss with me, as there was a large cast to follow within the story, and some of them don't take the threat of killer bugs seriously as they go on about their day regardless of what's happening, even putting their own lives at risk. The two main leads, Guy Archer and Sergeant Evans, felt flat at times and not really likable. They were mostly boring, as I wish these two main leads were more tougher in seeing them in action, which they hardly do much. Guy's wife, Dorothea, was the most clueless person I've ever read. She refuses to take anything seriously, and when ordered to leave London with the threat of spreading bugs, she'd rather stay at home, make dinner, do chores around the house, and wait for her husband to return so she can continue to complain to him of getting a job and leave the army. At one point, she puts herself, her daughter Kathy, and her friend's life at risk, which they barely escape. The rest of the characters are either flat boring most of the time with nothing interesting about them or forgettable, and when most of them are killed off, you really don't care about them as they don't offer anything to make them more likable or interesting. And there is one character who thinks the whole event is nothing more than a hallucination caused by a drug release. Twice he appears and tries proving his theory is right. Why the hell wasn't this character killed off or put in the story? During the third act of the novel, the author decides to have the two main characters cheat on their wives for no reason other than to pass time, as if he didn't have anything better to put in. And during my read, I spotted a huge plot hole. In the beginning of the novel, it's stated that Kathy is 18 years old, she works at a store, has a boyfriend, and hangs out with her friend Susha a lot, meaning she's a teenager, right? Well, towards the end of the novel, it's then stated she's only 11 years old. That's right, I double-checked this scene twice and thought I misread it. Nope, it's clear as day. And when the infestation of beetles and bloodworms gets worse, the government, for some reason, at first tries to cover up these attacks, but then go public when more people begin reporting of what's causing the massive death and destruction. And the author doesn't explain too well how the beetles and bloodworms' life cycle works. They just appear like magic. While there were moments I enjoyed with this novel, however, I felt it could have been so much better. If the author had a better cast of characters to follow, more moments of action, carnage, and destruction, explain the life cycle of the two bugs better, and delivering a big grand finale, then this would have been a smash hit. Overall, I would say pass on this novel as I don't think many would like it, but if you want to check out Bloodworm just to see what this late 80s horror novel is like, then go for it. Just don't expect a lot from it. It might disappoint you more than amuse you. And that is the review today. Hope you enjoyed it. And this book, man, I really am torn about it. I'm not going to lie. Like, I think the thing that really makes this book really good is this kick-ass cover artwork. This sick cover of this giant bloodworm just wreaking havoc and destruction, and that's what these things look like. Like this, the cover is an accurate representation of what the bloodworms look like. And then you see these like orange, like fiery colored beetles. That's what they look like in the book too. So this cover, it has a good description of what you to expect while reading it. So, and it's not like false advertising, which I like. But the story, I just felt could have been so much better. Like I felt the author had a really good idea with these, giant worms, and like the author had a good idea with these giant worms, but he adds these beetles, and one person commented he felt they really didn't fit. It's like he couldn't decide if he wanted to go with beetles or worms, and the book is called Bloodworm, which you think it's about killer worms, and yet there's these beetles in it, and the author doesn't explain what the life cycle, how these things work. Like, there's, I think, one point it tried to explain, but the author didn't really do a good job of explaining how this life cycle of these two bugs work and how they reproduce and stuff. He doesn't explain that, so that's one issue I have with this book. And then, as I said, there's this one character I absolutely did not like. I forget what his name is, this doctor guy. He tries saying this whole thing is nothing more than hallucination. Twice he appears. I'm like, hallucination? Are you stupid or something? Can you not see what's going on? I don't know why the author felt the need to add that character in the story. I wish he was killed off in the book, or just not added in the story. That would have made it better. But the rest of the cast are kind of forgettable. Like, you got an ex-soldier guy that doesn't really do much, and then you got a detective who doesn't do much either. They just show up, they just talk to other characters, do some things, but anything like action-packed or exciting. And then the author decides at one point to have the two characters who are married to cheat on their wives for no reason other than the pastime of the book, and which leads to this whole other thing of Guy Archer's wife having an affair with one of their neighbors, and then the daughter runs off, so Guy has to go find her, and when he's looking for her, he goes to the school, and this is a plot hole that happens in the book, and I'm like, how did the editor or the author not notice this? The beginning of the book, as I said, Guy's daughter, Kathy, is 18 years old, but then the book decides to have her back to 11-year-old girl. Like, what? I was like, wait a minute, did I read that right? And I checked, and yeah, it's clear as day. The book, like, the beginning of the book will say his 18-year-old daughter, and then towards the end, she's now 11 all of a sudden. Like, what the hell just happened here? I think there's, I don't know if it's a typo or the author meant to put another character that the guy goes to find, which leads to his daughter. But yeah, so there's that plot hole that I discovered, and like there are moments of destruction which I do like. We get a lot of that. Well, the bloodworms are wreaking havoc. I think there was one part where this giant bloodworm is like slithering through the London Underground. It's just like devouring people in its path. Like, that scene was really cool. There's a lot of moments where people are just being swarmed by these these small beetles, and they just eat away at you. It was very nasty scenes of just reading the description, how these things are just eating people alive and stuff, and it's very painful to read, and it's like some really cringe, like some moments was making me cringe just to imagine how painful this would be. Like, those are the things I enjoy for it, but the whole rest of the book, I just felt it could have been so much better. Like, as I said, this book is decent to read, but I was expecting a lot more of it, and I think I was kind of more let down with it than my first time, where I just found it fun, but it's, yeah. I am going to eventually get a replacement, because this is a library edition. It's not in it's in rough shape, as you can see, and I can't take this stupid sticker off, because if I do that, it's going to peel the cover off, and I don't want to damage it. This had this like stupid plastic wraparound, which I took off, and yeah, there's an edition I'm eyeing to get, so I plan on replacing this book. I guess there's a part of me that enjoyed it for what it was, but it could have been so much better. And the author's other book, I kind of have the same feelings towards it. Like, it's a fun read, but it could have been so much better. Like, it's okay, but could have been better. And oh yeah, and why did it take so long for the army to act when the situation was getting worse? It took them forever to act, and then by the time they do, towards the end of the book, it's like already too late. It's like, why couldn't there have been like a scene where we got tanks rolling in, they're shooting at these bloodworms, you got like soldiers shooting at them, or using frame throwers? That would have been cool. It takes like forever for the army to show up and do something about it. Like I said, this book could have been a lot better. Alright, that's it for this book review today. Hope you enjoyed it, and I have a collection of short stories which I have to finish for my October Terror series, and depending how long it takes me to get through this collection, I will see if I can, after I'm done the collection, I'm thinking of doing some horror manga reviews, as I got like 3 horror mangas that have been sitting on my shelf, well actually 4, so I could read 2 or 3 of those to just to, change up a little bit. If I have time, I might squeeze in another novel, but this month is already almost over, so I don't want to have like something where I read it and it's like in November. I don't want to do that, as I got my Dark Tower series that I want to get started on just before November, so that way I get a good start on it. So I'll see what I can squeeze in for the last remaining days of October. Alright, if you enjoyed this video, please like it, share it, and subscribe to October Library, the YouTube channel, and the Facebook group of the same name. Please support your review of fiction. Until then, I'll catch you later.